I'll be over there. Nice meeting you.
Good? Alright, no worries. Don't choke, don't choke, don't choke. As if you die, Aaron will have to talk more.
I love Subway.
But what kind of Subway? You mean Subway of the Subway or the Subway of the food?
Yes.
There's two Subway type.
Nothing gets me ready for a panel quite like a fresh taste of Subway. Made fresh by your sandwich baristas. Not like other fast food. Nothing fried, nothing frozen. Only fresh. Eat fresh. Subway.
I forgot to tell you the check didn't clear. I forgot to tell you the check didn't clear.
The check clear?
It did not.
Did the check didn't clear?
No.
Remember Jared from Subway? Screwed up. I eat this for sustenance, not for fun and not for pleasure. I just need protein and need carbohydrates. Like, I'm a biological machine. Anyway. Hey everybody, and welcome to our little fandom history panel about a deep dive into the Transformers news of 2003. This is based on a little stream series we did, and to introduce ourselves. Oh, but before I introduce ourselves, quick thing. Was anyone here not alive in the year 2003?
Damn.
Alright, don't leave! It's gonna change your life.
We're invested already.
So, to introduce ourselves, hi, I'm Chris Evangelist from the internet. And over here is Aaron Smith. Hi. We've known each other since 2002, when we were going to BotCons back then. We're also on a podcast together, WTF, and Aaron has joined me on live streams on youtube.com/evangelist, where we've been going through the news of 2003. So why don't we give you a little bit of theater of the mind? Why don't you meet us in 2003? So there's us.
Oh God, it burns!
There's us 21 years ago.
Yeah, let's find the most embarrassing picture of you from 20 some odd years ago. See that?
Folks who weren't alive yet in 2003, you have the photos of yourself in 2003?
Yes.
Excellent. What a beautiful photo. So this is what we look like. This is what things were like back in 2003, and this is the streaming series that we did so far. It took us, so I did this thing because I found the earliest news page on TFW, which was February 2003. And I thought, it'd be funny to go up to 2008, maybe it'll take like 2 or 3 streams. So 2003 took us 5 streams, each somewhere between 4 to 6 hours. And Aaron joined me at the end of stream number 1.
Yeah.
And then it's made way more sense having Aaron on since he was there with me through a lot of this.
Yeah.
So, by the way, there's a QR code there if you want to see a playlist of all these streams and maybe watch through them later. If you don't want to watch the entire streams, I can also say most of them have had time coding done by the heroic Logos Minor, who valiantly has time coded like the first 4 of them at least, and that's, oh, number 5's also, okay. Yeah, Logos Minor is in the room. I'm not going to point them out, but maybe give a round of applause for Logos Minor. A lot of the stuff we talk about has been time code, so please check those streams out, go to the comments, you'll find the time code comment, trust me. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. So this panel is not us going through the news again because we only have 40-some minutes. So instead we're going to start off with a little selection of headlines from 2003. And just a little spoiler. Aaron and I got as surprised by a lot of these as we were in 2003 because 21 years of memory is hard to maintain. For instance, one of the first things we saw was the conclusion of the 88 miles per hour production saga for Genesis, The Art of Transformers, an art book that went up for pre-order many years before 2003. Not many years, but the delays were very constant. In fact, in 2003, it was delayed 3 more times, including a week before it came out. It got delayed again. This was a huge saga Suck back then. This was like the Suck.
Yeah, this is the one that, because of what they showed at shows and online, which was a bunch of great artwork stuff, and never before seen things, and it was a whole lot of like, yeah, the check's in the mail, we swear, and it's shipped from somewhere. Swearsies, realsies, yeah.
The best part was the final delay was a disparity between the ones they were shipping themselves that you ordered from them, and the ones they shipped to retailers, which, at least in the front page news items, left the void of like, well, who shipped the ones to retail?
Yeah.
Who shipped the ones, where did they start?
Yeah, and there was a bit of like, we still have 7 in hand, or something along those lines. I was like, please.
Anyway, this saga was so overshadowed by everything to ever happen afterwards that it goldfished and memory hold very fast in the same decade. So it was fun to catch up on. Another one was Transformers Katakai was announced, and all of our information on it was Japanese video game magazine scans and people assuring us they could read them.
It's going to have every G1 character in it and every combiner, and they're all perfect, and it's the best thing that ever happened, and I'm making cookies.
And they're making some scumbag Armada game in America, and it sucks in North America, everything's better in Japan. Anyway, the game came out in 2003 and reviewed. And all the reviewers were very clear that this game was very neat and sucked.
3 words, that intro video.
Yeah. And then they played it. There was a very funny part where like there was a pre-build at Tokyo Game Show, and 2 out of 3 of the articles were like, you know, if this game's in the hopper for another year or so, it could be great, but it's coming out in 3 months. So, brace.
I think it was that it might be okay.
Yeah,
and then it was out and just.
Also, classic Jeff Gerstmann article was among those. This was baby Jeff Gerstmann, eager about Transformers, writing very honestly, I really wanted to have nicer things to say about this. Also, Binar as it was through most of 2003, and alternators and Masterpiece 01 were announced in 2003. So they didn't come out yet, so we got to see all the preamble. There was also a lot of link rocks, so there was a lot of reference to articles and reports that don't exist anymore. But there was a lot of hype for these in 2003. There was also a lot of hype for the live-action movie that was just announced in 2003. In case you didn't know that they announced it in 03, the front men being the X-Men producers.
That's how you knew it was going to be a good movie.
Yeah, they did X-Men right. And let me give you some factoids from 2003. These are true. It will totally be G1. I don't know why you're all laughing. I thought you liked G1.
Yeah, repeating statements. It'll totally be G1, the Transformers if you remember.
Going back to its roots, we're going to do right by the fans. Also, interestingly, we already knew about some of the potential directors, and we knew that one of them was out of the running in 2003. Michael Bay specifically was the first director to direct a film in 2003, and this is a bit. He was named directly because he was too busy. And this was really interesting to read in 2024.
Yes, both of us stopped, as moving stars, both of us stopped and was like, wait. Yeah. That's the story. Yeah.
You ever have that moment where you're like, wait, did I just timeline hop? Did I just like the most boring isekai possible?
Yes. Right?
Yes, it's Mary Steamers. Anyway, going off that, we each wanted to point out just like 3 things off the top of our heads earlier today, pre-written, that we learned during this. We're going to alternate a little bit. In case you don't remember, I'm the one on the top there in 2003. My new world's smallest Transformers that I got at OTFCC 2003. And that's Aaron down there at CyberCon 2003.
CyberCon 2003, yeah.
That was there were a couple pictures of him. He looked identical in all of them, but this one, he didn't have people on his shoulders. He only had, Elvin Pena is just off screen, basically, for those who know.
Who remembers Elvin Pena? Can I see hands? I see 4 or 5 hands.
Hell yeah! I got my Metroplex off of one of his siblings. It was very nice. Anyway, one thing I learned was 2003 was Dreamwave's victory lap. They on their website, and in the early 2003, they said not only is this the year of Dreamwave, but 2004, the year of Transformers, will also be the year of Dreamwave. They had a contest they ran with local Ontario art schools. And this is before this was a phrase. this contest was then getting art students to do design work as a contest, and the prize included the phrase massive exposure. So that existed back then. Also, there was a very sobering interview when Don Figueroa a young baby Don Figueroa took over as the main artist. And he had phrases, I'm paraphrasing a bit, like, I'm so proud and honored that the great Pat Lee is passing the baton onto me so I can get a good head start and have a great, bright future ahead of me working on this here, the Transformers brand. That didn't entirely happen.
The number of different books that Pat Lee was proud to also be overseeing.
Pat Lee
overseeing this.
Personally overseeing the Energon and Armada books, according to press interviews. But yeah, Dreamwave had a big victory lap that year because as far as we know in 03, everything was fine. Aaron, how about you?
Yeah, so one of the things that we kind of now see past it that is back in 2003, like front page click through what you did. It was everything. It was like the blurb of the story, you know, the half link would be like a half length tweet now, and then click here to go to the website because I did websites in 2003, I guess.
Yeah.
It's, you know, still a whole lot of the figuring out what is like a front page versus what are boards versus what are anything else, because it was all baby internet.
And unfortunately, TFW 2005 suffered a massive database catastrophe in 2005, oddly.
Yeah.
Known at the time as the Energon wave, which is why there are no message board posts pre-2005. They're gone forever. So a lot of these 2003 front page stories were linking to
Lindrot and to what memories we could scratch.
Yeah, even stuff that was posted on the boards, like we got these, for those of you on dial-up, beware, we have these massive 18 megabyte AVIs from OTFCC 2003. They're all gone. A lot of the OTFCC coverage was brand new, cutting edge AVIs and photo gallery, they're all gone. So the streams there are moments in the streams where we're like, it sure would have been neat to know what people were saying. As for me, kind of bouncing off that, the fandom of 2003 versus the children of 2003. This was one of my favorite things about these streams, is the audience of the streams in the text chat ranged a gamut of age groups, all the way from people who, at least two people who didn't exist in 2003. Shouts out Pee Poo Poo. And a couple of folks, yeah, Pee Poo Poo in the chat. There were also a couple of folks who were there for the Usenet era of Transformers fandom, which predates me, for the most part. And people who were kids in 2003 seeing at least a taste of the fandom of 2003, those kids who went on to become part of the fandom, we had a lot of these kind of neuron connective moments that were just fascinating. Like people who grew up where their childhood toy was Energon Optimus Prime, seeing the adult fandom of 2003 reacting to the reveal of Energon Optimus Prime, and they now as adults applying their now adult brain to those adults when they were a kid. Like it sounds a little kooky, but like the layered connectivity of memories is so amazing. It's part of the reason I love doing these streams.
Yeah, we'll frequently see people's reactions to, everybody think about like what was your first toy as a kid, and if you go back to that toy now, that toy is not the same toy that you had as a kid. You know, it's the thing that I think I've mentioned a few times in the podcast. And sometimes when we talk about toy in general, the new generation stuff is, this is what you remember that toy being, not what that toy actually is. You go back and well, it's missing link. The Prime, you look at that, that is what people maybe our age have when you went off on this Prime and think of what that was, okay, and then you see missing link, oh hey, this is a hit. This is what I remember.
Yeah, we're going to touch on this again, by the way, later on, because the intergenerational reactions to old ancient news and websites was amazing. But Aaron, on your end, you also were talking more about...
Yeah, more about what we stepped on. Yeah, so that was another thing, early 2003 and through, a lot of the new stuff was, this is really pre-YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube does not exist. So anytime that you've got a video file, you're having to host it yourself. and maybe you have them 2 or 3 different versions because it's not like you have some sort of smart player that can figure out how fast your connection is.
Dial-up users beware.
Yeah, quite a few video files of live things that would have like, oh, this is now you think it's filmed with a potato, but it was good footage then.
This is in 480p.
Yeah.
But we've got one in 120p for the dial-up users.
Yeah, and you specifically have to have those dial-up user, like, warnings, because that would kill the thing. And then, a bunch of photo galleries, anytime new toys came out, people, that was like, you had to be the first one.
I got a digital camera that
Yeah.
can connect to my computer.
Yeah, it's just the same way that later on in time, there'd be, the first people who get it on YouTube, it was serious, the first people that would get a toy, do a photo gallery and put it up on a board someplace or on a website someplace, so that then other people that were maybe interested in this toy could have an idea of what it was,
This
because,
doesn't come up in these actually, but it just reminded me, a lot of leaked toys in those 3 were also, they were not leaked, by an influencer or by someone getting clicks. They were leaked by an eBay seller hoping someone would buy it
yeah.
off their eBay page. And they marked it up to like $50 for an unreleased as of yet figure. eBay auctions have also got summarily blanked by Azur constantly back then, because it was a lot easier to come down on eBay in 2003 than YouTube in 2024. But yeah, to finish off my 3, early internet amateur journalism. So a lot of people who ran fandom sites, kind of the top level of active message board fan site fandom in 2003, also just finished college. So there were a lot of drunk early 20-somethings, and a lot of the candor and wording of some of those things were really funny to read when you would see who posted something. If it said kickback, there was often like this extremely 2003 cutting edge, hey guys, remember Soundwave? He's blue, but it's a really interesting early internet tone. And also coupled with reporting on Alta Vista Babelfish machine translations of Japanese text as gospel. And I can't even remember some of the wordings. Check the streams, we read them out loud word for word. It was difficult.
It was difficult that, the whole binaural tech versus, binaural tech, because that was what the first translations, machine translated, early machine translating was binaural tech, and even when we had box images, no, it's binaural tech, because that's what
Alta Vista said.
Alta Vista said it was the first time, and then it was finally like, oh, let's just read the box, it's not just binaural tech, come on.
And also relying on all of 2, maybe 3 people, because they could get Figure King scanned. They didn't even have the magazine, they just had a sourcing scanner.
Yeah, that was, pre this, that was how we got car robots, was somebody shipping tapes over, or whatever nonsense it was that Tony Rockwell was doing.
Yeah, tapes that bootlegged TV Asahi of 2001.
Yeah.
Getting ripped into real media. By the way, one of the early info people, or mid-2003 info people, S250, I believe we pieced together maybe the person who does Beast Box now. So that was an interesting moment.
Yeah.
But for the final year, 3 interesting things. We've got...
A whole lot of stories about sales and variance, and then specifically the memory of one of the things that we went through was it KD or was it?
Oh, can I?
Well, I'm trying to remember the first part, then you can say the second part, but it was KD or Toys R Us or some store specifically had the closeout on Armada Unicrons with the Minicron packing for $40.
And then immediately realized that was the twilight of customizer crotch era.
Yeah.
That's where all the Unicron crotches came from.
No.
All these.
You are incorrect.
Where else does it come from?
2005 Energon Armada liquidation.
Yeah.
Oh, that was part
For
of this too.
$30.
Energon Unicron shipped into liquidating KD toy stores in 2003 as well. And some people had found the new Energon Unicron as part of these sales in 03. But I guess, we're going to get that too in 05.
Yeah.
Also, can I talk about the KD toys?
Yes. You can tell them about the other exciting story that we did.
So you know KD Toys? Maybe not.
Okay, who doesn't know what KD Toys is? Raise your hand.
They're highly dead here. They used to matter. But you know class action lawsuit things you're getting an email where it's like, fill out this email, do this whole form, get a $2 check in the mail. Someone humbled and humiliated KB Toys because they had a class action lawsuit where the end result was very specifically every cashier owned by KB Toys, no matter if it's a KB Toys store or not, every cashier will cash out at 30% off for these set days, no matter what it is, no matter if it's a different storefront name. Whatever happened to KB Toys in court, they had their clothes torn off their body, and they were thrown into a puddle of mud, and they were told to swim around.
And there were, again, like 2 specific stories of like, hey, if you go on this date, you can combine this sale and this sale, and what was it? We figured like up to 65% off.
Yeah.
If you went on one of those sale days, and I specifically remember at seeing that again, being like, oh yeah, I remember going to the KB Toys as an arm ball in order to try and hunt down anything that I needed. And of course, at that point in time, it was, carnage. But,
Well, also on the variance thing, 2003 is when Aaron was a freshly recovering variant hunter. And when you think variant, do you mean different paint job? No, this means the identical toy with slightly different codes printed on the back. It's a UPC code.
no, not quite that bad. Not quite. So anything, if it was different packing, if it was different paint apps on it, I'm not saying re-decos, like, okay, it's now the Energon powered one. I'm saying, like, they changed the way they did the masking on the oddball logos at the beginning of Energon. And some of those were variants that were picked up because they were different, or at least tracked, because I was friends with the Hartmans pretty seriously at the time, and that was a good job of like, oh, hey, this one has a very clearly different color on this one part. Do you want it? And within seconds, I would have a text message response of yes, period. So,
Aaron was
sometimes those
very
things happen.
Like you were
Yeah.
like 20,
I was 21 in 2003. We did the math there.
Yeah, but this is when you were recovering.
Yeah, this was like right at the worst that I'm into, like the beginning of the like.
Well, you all know the really smart decisions you make when you have a hobby and you're 20.
Yeah. Credit cards. This is like free money.
And then you become friends with the Hartmans who are just doing the very like.
They have been doing that since '84.
Yeah. So yeah, these are just a couple of things we learned. There's plenty more, like the more we think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there was also a really big thing in 2003, which was Orson's World's Twilights. This was the final year of Orson's World. And in the first stream, the Orson's World posts were all click through to see more, which depressed me. However,
Well, first off, I'll say, who doesn't know what Orson's World was?
oh, give them
Again, a bunch of sad things. Okay. So, in the beginning, there was somebody that was posting on TFW that went by the name of Orson that had, that was telling tales of inside of Hasbro, and it took a little bit to suss out who it was. It was never an open secret, or it was kind of an open secret at that time. Once you knew, you knew. But the gentleman that had the panel prior to this one, Aaron Archer, was on the 2005 boards posting as Orson. So initially it was just like, hey, there'd be something coming up, or somebody to ask, had in some thread about a toy, they'd say something like, this paint scheme's dumb, and then Orson would come in and say something like, oh no, well that paint scheme specifically is referencing blah, 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 because he knew.
Yeah.
And
he was the lead at the time, right?
he was, he would have been, if he wasn't the lead, he was his primary.
Yeah.
And occasionally there'd be people that would come back and be like, no, it's not, you're dumb. And everybody else would be like, okay, well maybe this guy knows whatever. And a few that were staff at the time were like, we're not supposed to.
Overtures were made privately to sort this out.
Yeah, and it'd be like, yo, dude, this guy is, it's known that he's a person that works for Hasbro. Your uncle that works for Nintendo, that knows the guy that works at Hasbro is not the full. Hey, that's
Sitting here.
Anyway, I was going to say the true origin of Orson's World is also this lost to time but remains in hazy memories. I specifically remember before our motto was fully revealed, there was some guy who disappeared shortly after Orson arrived, who was saying things like, yeah, our motto Optimus Prime is going to be a love letter to 1984, and his mini-con is going to transform into a matrix of leadership. Also, he will be superposable, as will Optimus Prime. And then Orson's first major appearance in my memory was going like, no. And then this guy would be like, yeah, well, I work at Hasbro. And then Orson would be like, no, you don't. You really do. Come meet me in the hallway in about 20 minutes, please. What are you doing? So, you're just in time. So, we're not going to go through a ton of Orson's World stuff. Thanks to Logos Minor, we have a lot of it time-coded in the VODs of the streams. But as some examples of what we enjoy about Orson's World, there would be, what is this? There'd be stories like this. Where it's look at the end, where it'd be things like, it's long to explain about name trademarks, but did you know we almost lost Megatron once? Don't ask. Aaron Archer was in the chat at the time, or shortly after, so we said, hey, what was up with that? So we got the answer. There was a company that wanted to use the name Megatron. As per legal didn't want to deal with it, Azur says we really needed the name. I told them I would quit if they gave up the name. So, were it not for Aaron Archer, we might just have Bad Guy Boomba or something. Leader, really? Oh. Evil one. Also, there were other info bits that came out. We were talking about Lost Hulk because the commemorative reissue premiere, and Aaron Archer revealed that a number of old steel hulls, no one really can know which ones, also became boat ballasts in Hong Kong. So if you ever become a billionaire, you could buy the entire Hong Kong shipping industry and rip all the boats open and go digging through the ballast to see if you can find the Dinobots. And it's not just insider info, there's also fun bits. Like, for instance, and he's here now, a thing that I had always enjoyed, even in 2003 about Orson posting, was when sometimes he would just have a be answering questions, and someone would start asking about Airtron. And before the convention that year, the response wouldn't just be, I'm not going to be answering people. I will not be answering any Energon questions! Or the classic Orson answer where someone would ask something and in all caps the response would be, no! We got an update in the chat during all that, at which point Aaron said, I don't believe the all caps are yelling, it's supposed to be importance over volume. And I appreciate that, and always point it out, and then say my funny little editorialization is I like the idea that he was just screaming at people every now and then. Because sometimes the questions totally were funny, we'll get into that. But also, when we finally met Aaron at BotCon, Aaron was such a soft-spoken, kind of nice guy that it made it even funnier to me that sometimes the responses were like just full all caps.
That's where his real rage goes.
But getting more to the Twilight of Orson's World, we have a few bullet points out of this that I want to highlight too. This was the original fan to Hasbro interaction. There was like a minor one at a BotCon that resulted in some guy getting fired, as I recall. But this was the original. And consider now we have Instagram access to literally the Transformers primary team. And that after the beginning of Orson's World, we also headed into a pretty much every year having a Hasbro Q&A panel at BotCon. Even the post-Aaron Archer-led era, there were Transformers design leads who just did interviews with YouTubers who called evangelists. Plug. Clinton Mark, I didn't know each of them. But this was the start of something that became, with every passing year, with every passing decade, like a tie that we have that like we don't really deserve or it's not owed to us. But the more that this tie is maintained, the more that we as eager fans get a better education of what, just a certain layman's degree, a better education of what we love to better inform our conversations. Also, it was for better and for worse. Sometimes someone would ask him a question that would be like, hey, Orson, I love the Transformers, been a big fan since 1984, and the reissues coming out make my inner child happy at heart. Also, why did you screw up so badly and fail and put out Red Alert as a reissue before before Sideswipe, which makes zero sense because Sideswipe came out before Red Alert in 1984, and Red Alert came out in 1985, and I'm curious what caused this catastrophic discrepancy to happen. And that would be the tone of some of the questions, because this is also
Text and 2003, and yeah.
why, Aaron? Why are the colors wrong?
Because they could be.
Also, one-word responses to complex questions. I also started doing the emphasis thing here, by the way, it's thematic. But there would be people who would also ask an extremely lengthy question that in its essence was a yes or no question. So there would be 4 to 10 lines of text, which would result in a no. Also, this is going back to the previous point, the reveal back then of what the kids to collectors ratio was, which, if I recall correctly, was about a 90 to 10 mix in 2003. And what's interesting about this is going back to the Children of 03, right? Kind of the fandom of 2024. Ignore that. Is that a lot of that 90 became the 10, and as this ratio was reported on over the years, it always tweaked. The 90 came down a little bit, the 10 went up a little bit, and then realizing during these streams, part of that is that the 90 grew up to become the 10, but the existing 10 stuck around. And literally kids from 03 telling us how, as fans in 24, they're reacting to seeing some of this.
Yeah, and it's definitely a thing that, in 2003, nobody that was necessarily a kid, the kids that were kids for 84 are just now coming into adulthood, and, the crazy amount of money that maybe makes you go to a convention. And again, that's the thing, from back in time, when people would ask, well, look at all the people that are on these boards, and it'd be something.
Look at all 400 of us!
Yeah, well, and that's another thing. When you see the population of boards from 2003 to even what they are now is a massive explosion. But it's definitely something that, going back and looking at it and having the interaction, seeing it, there's a reason why it wasn't, why there weren't the adult-oriented things like what we get now, why the soon upcoming in this timeline, 20th anniversary prime
Is next year.
But to see how that was such a big thing for us and how we were constantly getting news stories about how that was evolving from the time that we found out about it. So I think at the end of the year, we found out it was out in Japan. I think we had an in-package for US.
Yeah.
Because there was multiple questions about the smokestacks.
Yeah, are the smokestacks going to be long and murderous and bad damage?
And bad damage, yeah.
That was all to differentiate them. But also, I guess kind of bouncing off this stuff, this was an unprecedented connection to Hasbro that has only flourished since then. Not only in the connection to current, Hasbro folks through the years, but also to Aaron Archer, sticking around, coming out to TFCons, coming to watch streams about this stuff and filling in gaps of knowledge as we went. Also, just I think having, I assume, some of the same neuron moments as us. I think one of those screen caps involved Aaron saying, "I don't remember answering most of these." So that must have been kind of fun to see your own 21 years removed internet self. But the Orsis World Twilight, Orsis World ended in 03. That was a whole funny thing. But also, Transformers.com's official Q&As began in that year, and you could tell that was kind of the formalized version of Orsis World, but the fun was kind of not as much there flavor-wise. However, there was a very fun thing, I think there's a recap of it, there was some fun there because it was Orsis World, something being run through the use specific wordings filter.
The marketing legal team of, I don't think they were onto conversions.
No,
as action word yet, but it was.
Rather than a fan going why, hey, I love Transformers, and why did you screw up Armada Thrust, for instance, as the wording? It'd be fans really enjoyed the return of classic seekers to the Transformers brand, even niche ones, ones with cone-shaped heads, sort of Rush, Transformers TM. What can we expect to see in the realm of such things in future lines, like the upcoming and exciting Transformers Energon TM? like that being the questions now, has a whole different funny flavor to me that I am enjoying.
Yeah.
Also, check out the streams because we always alternate who plays Aaron Archer when we read those.
For the streams, yes.
And we also always alternate who plays us the Asters. And whenever there's a lot of Asters, I love giving them all different voices. Some of them, like when the questions are really drawn out, I just try to see how wide I can open my mouth while I'm talking. It's a good time. But moving on from this, 2004 and you, we're going to continue doing these streams. So like, what's 2004 going to bring to us in 2024? We're going to see the 20th anniversary in the 40th anniversary. That's the playlist, by the way, if you want to see the VODs. And also, not just 2004, I'm also excited about 07, because that's when the entire fandom changes.
Yeah.
Irrevocably in the course of about 5 days. That's when the TFW 2005 membership, and this is something we brought up a lot, when people would see things like the 2005 board's debate of the week, for instance, and your immediate response is probably, oh god, Redditors, right? But in 2003, TFW was a small message board community of like no more than 4 figures, and the lower end of that, where most people you saw regularly posting, you knew them when you saw them post. So a debate of the week did not have the horrific implications that it would on a message board in 2024. In 07, the membership spiked from 4 figures to 5 figures, like over the course of less than a week.
Yeah, I think that the actual spike was some like national news thing.
Yeah.
Linked to a video or something that was posted on TFW, and it crashed the boards, and then it
Fast
got
and
put back
Furious?
together, and then it like crashed 30 seconds after.
Fast and Furious, the passing. Yeah, the
Maybe,
passing
yeah.
of one of I think it was Anton from Fast and Furious.
Oh, yeah. It was a Fast and Furious news item that also did a huge kaboom.
Yeah.
But yeah, it changed the board's flavor and culture, and it changed the entire fandom's flavor and culture over the course of less than a year in 07. I think it's going to be a lot of discovery for us, given how many things in 03 we already were going like, what?
Yeah,
Like,
for some of the member berries also back then was when you hit 1,000 posts on the board, it was a big deal. And everybody would pretend jump you into a gang. You get beat up by people. You post your own thread about how you reached that. At a certain point, it was like
you became one with the Matrix.
yeah, you became one with the Matrix, and just couldn't do that anymore.
You
Anybody-
posted 1,000 times on a message board.
Yeah.
And you get a thread to celebrate you for doing so, whereas nowadays people would be like, oh god, I posted like 400 times and here I suck.
Yeah.
I'm terrible. But that's not all of this. We also wanted to leave room for any questions or any comments people might have. Either if you saw any of these streams, if talking about this stuff has given you any insight, or if you just have questions about the year 2003, we just kind of sped run it. I put a lot of 03 stuff in the thumbnails too, so if I dig in, I can probably figure out like what Vogue was talking about, some of the fashions. Was anyone at, there was no BotCon 2003. Was anyone at the official Transformers Collectors Convention in 2003? Any memories from that? We got some over there. But yeah, Q&A mic is open. Also, Mike is by the Q&A mic, and that's pretty funny. Mike, were you alive in 2003?
If you,
Helps if you turn it on.
it is on.
Helps if they turn it on.
I'll just be loud.
No, you?
The joke was if you call it living. But yeah, I was around in 2003. That was about when I really started getting into the brand. So I was actually even more so on the Canadian Transformers message board that evolved into Cybertron.ca before TFW 2005.
Yeah. Though that reminds me, we also saw lots of announcements about something called Transformers Con 2003, and the announcements about Transformers Con 2004. That was very cute to see.
Yes, Transformers Con is what was that's not completely link right, it's been domain stacked.
Oh yeah, someone has TransformersCon or TransformersCon.com. Oh, that reminds me, I meant to talk about
Like
this.
a real estate one, I think.
Yeah, we also had a moment where Les Brown of NRG, the singer of Instruments of Destruction, was starting a new band called something like Crack Jackals or something. I can't remember what it's called. But he had a website called Area403.net. That website, untouched from 2003, is still there. And it has
A gig board.
a gig board where you can send in your classifieds to find connections in the music and art industry. So basically, it's a global, long page of people doxing themselves in detail.
Hi, I'm 14 years old and I like singing.
Yeah, many of the
It's the most 2003 ass website
there's
I've ever
Internet
seen.
Explorer logo on the bottom, and a lot of the people doxing themselves also are wildly underage in 2003, so it's okay to look at it now. And among the quotes, some that really stuck out. Hi, I'm 16, female, and will do anything to be part of a band. Here's my phone number and address.
Yes.
Hi, I'm 14 and play the guitar real good. Here's my email address and telephone number. I live in this neighborhood. Also, Australians doxing themselves in 2003, which I guess is kind of funny. But yeah, also that site sells the new tracks in 2003 that Les Brown was making. The digital links don't work anymore. However, someone watching the stream successfully ordered a CD through the PayPal link. They became a YouTube member to join the Discord, not a plug, 'cause I don't want to be members, moderating sucks. And they want to give us updates, it's Ronnie. Less than a week later, Ronnie got a tracking number. No updates yet. I don't know what's coming.
I just imagine some dusty robot in some warehouse with a wheel.
At last, my function is fulfilled. The one copy left. We're trying to theorize, like, did Les Brown get woken up by an alarm clock that hasn't gone off for 20 years? And he opened this dusty box of CDs and it's like, and wrote thank you and backed it away. Does this just connect to an Amazon warehouse through decades of transfer of, inventory? Who knows? Area403.net. Don't click too many of the links. We didn't. Link rot is terrifying. That's another thing that I remembered we talked about earlier. The number of people who saw website names and said that was around.
Yeah, Big Bad Toy Store was around in 2003.
Big Bad Toy Store, CD Japan. Some people reacted that way to Amazon, which was very cute. There were a couple other ones. Super 7, a magazine at the time, was around in 2003. There were names as well, like what was it? It was ST50, whose bio and signature clearly indicated that is the person who went on to become at least involved heavily with Beastbox. Also, a bit of trivia. There's a good chance Bill Ivallo of the band His Infernal Majesty was a TFW poster in the early aughts. His Infernal Majesty. Bill Ivallo, there was a user on the board named Bill Ivallo, and he only posted for about 2 years. But shortly afterwards, and someone corroborated this during one of these streams, that user at some point was making a sales thread saying, I have CDs to sell. And so we're pretty sure that Bill Ivallo of His Infernal Majesty was a Transformers fan online at the turn of the century. There's no proof, it's all gone, that was 305. Colin of TFCon was around back then. That was baby Colin. Was it like Colin?
That was Colin with hair.
Yeah, that was hair Colin. Can you imagine it?
With hair. Look at it.
It doesn't work. It's not right. He looks cooler like this.
It's like dividing by 0.
It's like saying Mr. Worldwide, but with hair.
Mr. Worldwide?
Pitbull.
Oh, right. Yeah! You gotta put on like a white shirt and you got that Mr. Worldwide. Just tell people you're Mr. Worldwide. Maybe.
I did have an earring in the 90s.
Hell yeah,
He is good at housework.
You can rock it, you can rock it.
yeah. We had a lot of fun doing these streams. We wanted to share some of the experience. Hit up that QR code and you can see what we did. I'm hoping to put an Orsa's World supercut together now that we basically have the only recorded Orsa's World stuff ever remaining recorded. And please tune in and join us when we do 2004 and onwards. The plan is to do these until we get the posting of the first episode of the TFW podcast, because at that point we started looking at news and recording it ourselves at the time. So there's no reason to do that over again. But yeah, it took us 3-4 months and say 30 plus hours to go through 2003. So we'll probably hit 2008 by the end of the week.
I'm sure nothing is coming up in after 2004 that will make it go slower.
Yeah, it's almost gonna be smooth sailing from here. Oh yeah, that's the one last tip. We figured out how to speed it up by glazing past certain news items. Did you know an enormous amount of news was just party hero statues having one-line updates? Lots and lots of Armada TV episode airtime listings. YTV actually had the scoop on Armada, so hey, cameo. And also a whole lot of CD Japan, Amazon Japan, minor updates on the ad copy for Micron Densetsu DVDs. So we kind of just glaze past those things now. But yeah, thanks for checking out this channel. And if you were born before or after 2003, we love what you, we love our fandom and we love all of you. I was trying to lead up to kind of picking on the people who were born after, man. Someone's actually asking me who was born after.
And you kind of kept talking to not give them the window.
Well, I was waiting for them to,
Hi.
Hi.
I mean, I did exist in 2003, but for most of 2003, I was 2 years old.
Hey!
But I actually just wanted to ask two things. One thing, I don't know if I missed it, but you talked about a 90-to-10 ratio of kids to collectors. I was wondering where that came from, and also I just wanted to hear more about like your perspectives as people who've been in the fandom for so long, how it's changed, how has like modern social media changed your experience, or like the fandom at large, how you feel about that?
Yeah, so like
The 90-10
the 90-10 came from Aaron Archer. There was a question in Orson's World where they were very like, aren't you doing all this stuff for the fans? That was our reading. He may have been very sincere about it, but we read it as very, angry, shaking, sick. And it really came about, he was like, hey, all of our numbers say that kids are the ones that buy all the toys for the toys are bought for children. And so like as we do a thing, we'll try to put an homage taste into it, but we're not making toys for adults because that market just didn't exist. Like I said, it was the kids from 80 that were getting toys in '84 that in by 2000, the early 2000s were just becoming of the age of like, oh, I've got a job and disposable income now. And so that's why the 20th anniversary Optimus Prime in '81 Optimus Prime was such a big deal because that was really the first transforming toy that was aimed straight at the head of adult collectors.
Yeah.
And so now when you look at it, I think when they kind of talked about it, they look more like maybe 60-40 to 50-50-ish, depending on how you want to look at like the modern lines that have throwback characters in it. Is that because they're filling out the line, or are they putting that character in there for adult collectors? Plus all the masterpiece toys that Hasbro and Takara are producing now, and the big things that are clearly licensed products that are going to adult collectors really has shown that the adult collectors do make up more of a market now.
And just about our perspective on culture, like I can go on and on, but like the really key capsule of it is, I'm really happy I was there back then. Things were different back then. It was a little bit tight in, a little bit closer and smaller. And that's why I really love the way things are now, and I think things are better now, because we have so many on-ramps to this larger pseudo-community fandom thing that we have, that it's no longer just which message board do you live in. It's like we have interconnected continents of fans that you can meet. It's like, how did you jump on? Were you 2001? Were you 2004? Were you 2007? Were you 2008? Or were you 2011? And that's just off the top of my head, right?
Yeah.
And it means that we don't have the presence of the fandom elder who can flex any kind of fake authority. We just have lots of small communities, and especially through these streams, it shows me how much we can layer together and just find all kinds of perspective on what happened before and what could happen next. And I really love it. I love that this fandom does not have a sear tip. It's just a big old pile and non-derogatory. So thank you all for also being part of the pile. I don't know what that is.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
You're welcome.
Hello. Hey. So I was 7 years old when 2003. So
Bionicle? Bionicle?
yes, yeah, Bionicle.
It's an activation phrase.
Like I was at 7 so disconnected from the Transformers community, hearing that the '07 movie was announced in 2003. I heard nothing about that. So like, what year did you go into the larger fandom as opposed to just like your friends playing with Transformers? Like when did you go?
1999 for me. I was in high school. I was lurking Alt Toys Transformers way too much. I know way too much about it, given I hardly ever participated. It's why it's been a while meeting folks like Trickster. This is farther down the road. And I was terrified to post on a message board for a good year and a half. It was Lockdown 2000 when I met Tony Bakala, and I got the bits like, I should try posting on this nice little small board that he runs. The niche little fandom nobody called 2005 Force.
Yeah, for me, I think I started lurking, well, it would have been in fall of 2000 when I had, I was at university and had like an always on internet connection. Anytime I wanted to get online, I could. I didn't have to wait for the evening when nobody's going to call us to mess up the dial-up, living out in the country, and starting to see stuff like that and becoming a fan. And then it was, I want to say it was 2002 was my first convention that I went to because it was in Fort Wayne, which was a short drive away. And it was kind of a spur of the moment thing to go see that. And then it was just like, oh my gosh, I'm not just a weirdo in my dorm room looking at toy pictures and the like. It was, hey, there's a bunch of people that really did this thing that I did, and kind of just like blew my brain that there are other people out there that like these toys.
And that's why I'm his senpai, because I started doing stuff.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so I was a preteen, I think, like at that time, and yes, very much so. But yeah, so I didn't really hang out on any of the boards very much, and I think there's quite a few people about my age group that feel that I kind of have a similar experience. But I did hang out a lot on the fanfiction .net place, like a lot like reading fanfiction, and I will tell you actually, like because again of the pile that happens, and it's a fandom that never dies. It's just continuing on. I've noticed like so much change over the years, like in just like fan fiction, particularly just with the differences of shipping, differences of topics and things like that, and I just kind of think that that'd be like a very interesting thing to explore for somebody to delve into. I don't know. So I guess my question is like if you guys have any interest in that, or maybe possibly exploring that, or
I am so interested in, as you put it, the pile. Whenever any kind of internet community has enough history and also a lack of hierarchy or eldership to just be lots of generations co-mingling and existing, and also obviously not fighting openly all the time.
Yeah.
I think it makes for such interesting stuff. Once you go past a decade already.
yeah, because it has changed like so much, like from what I remember.
That's the thing that I remember from early times online, is because again there wasn't quite the fire hose that we have now. On TFW, you read all the fan fiction stuff because that was a new, hey, there's a new post in here. Okay, I'll read this. This person's clearly got a self-insert character, okay, whatever. And then you move on because it was all part of that community. Kind of talking with the different communities that existed, and there was a period of time at conventions where you were message board was your clique. I specifically remember Bimma telling a story about Bimma's a friend from Iceland. She's not managed to do it for a while because flights and European currency and economic stuff. But I remember specifically Lexington at that con. She came over and said, yeah, somebody from the All-Spark came over and saw I was wearing TFW 2005 shirt and hissed at me. And I was like, okay, but that was like beef. territory, you know,
Yeah.
like, we need to get a bunch of our heavies and go rouse, and it's like, no, he was like a little weird kid.
Imagine nerds in the early aughts also referring to heavies, and imagine what that actually like would possibly look like.
And we had a couple of heavies, we had a couple of heavies.
We also gotta keep rolling.
Yeah.
Like less than like 10 minutes left. But I would love to see more stuff like that.
Like deep dive into it, yeah. Thank you.
Once upon a time, people thought that the message board had a literal like pit rumble at a BotCon. It's true.
I will keep mine very brief. So,
Bionicle?
no, I was a sprightly 24-year-old in,
My generation.
yes, I was the G1 generation. OTFCC 2003 was the first year I was official convention staff. And I feel like nothing summarized the fandom experience at the time so much as the fact that absolutely no one wanted those collector plates until the collector plates got delayed, and then this was a crime and every windfall should be taken out and shot.
You can't get into it, but that is an activation word for a certain level of collector plates.
I just had to mention the collector plates.
Thank you.
Well, in 2003, I was 30 years old. So I'm here to play the grumpy old man.
How are you still 30 years old now?
You know, Dark Energon. Yeah. So we're here at the 40th anniversary, and obviously we're going to look at 10 years from now, will be the 50th. And what do you see for yourselves, and what do you hope for going forward as we approach these milestones that just are going to get bigger and bigger?
More generations of fans and more of the 10 becoming the 90, and interacting and hearing more about people who grew up on Prime, people who grew up on, I want to hear from the people who grew up on Cyberverse. Like, how did you watch cartoons when you were a kid in 2019? Like, how do they even work, you know? I'm really excited about this stuff because, like I said, the pile means I'm only more and more excited about more people joining the adult fandom and interacting and thinking deeper about this stuff.
It's my favorite thing to see different people that have had those different on-ramps, and, you know, I always, you know, like I said, it started or in the middle of it, you know, the toy that you remember versus the toy that you go back and see again. And seeing people have discussions like that, and then seeing like, oh, the new Gin ride is coming because Power Master Optimus Prime was my first ride. Yeah. And seeing that new Gin ride, and I have my old Power Master Prime, and I know that one has a lot more love and had a whole lot more imagination in it, but that's what I remember being with the new one. So more iterations of that fun stuff.
And more TF cons!
Yeah.
We are hella out of time.
Last one, we got time for one more.
One more.
I didn't exist in 2003, so how was it?
We were cutting off of the fear that the Y2K Club was going to eat everything, and we'd have to go back to stones and rocks and instead.
That was an actual fear.
All right.
All right, thank you very much for an interesting look into the world of Prime. And get ready for our next panel, which is going to be Ninjatron, teaching us about an even